Lil RT is finally growing up, and real talk, his story is way more sad than most of y'all think. Y'all remember this kid, the one who seemed to come out of nowhere, freestyling on an Atlanta street corner, and within months he was everywhere. Your timeline, your group chat, your little cousin's TikTok page. He went from a regular 9-year-old to a name millions of people knew, almost overnight. But here's the thing, what looked like a fairy tale come up from the outside was a lot more complicated once you start digging into what was actually happening around him. Years later, people are still asking the same question. Did growing up in front of millions actually help this kid? Or did the life that came with that early fame create problems that nobody fully understood at the time? Because what happened after the viral moments, after the cameras, after the headlines, that's the part of this story that really changed how people look at him. And we're about to get into all of it. The come up, the family, the heartbreak, and what this whole thing says about what we do to kids when we hand them a spotlight before they're even old enough to understand what it means. So stick around, because by the end of this, you're gonna see Lil RT a whole lot different than you did when you clicked on this video. Yo, what's good, fam? Before we get into the deep stuff, let me keep it 100 with y'all. There's a lot of noise out there about this kid. Rumors, hot takes, comment section debates that go in circles. But we're about to separate the facts from the speculation and lay out exactly how this story unfolded so y'all can come to your own conclusions instead of just repeating what you saw on a 30-second clip. Let's go back to the beginning, because to understand where Lil RT is now, you gotta understand where he came from. Born Robert Thompson in June of 2014, this kid grew up in the West Atlanta neighborhood of Bankhead. Now, for those who don't know, Bankhead isn't just a location, it's a whole culture. It's a neighborhood with deep roots in Atlanta hip-hop, a place that's produced sounds and styles that ended up shaping mainstream rap for decades. Long before streaming numbers and viral clips, Bankhead was already known as a breeding ground for artists who turned their block parties, their everyday language into something the rest of the country would eventually pick up and run with. So from the jump, Lil RT wasn't some kid who discovered rap because it looked cool online. He was raised inside of it. The rhythm, the slang, the energy of the streets around him, that was just normal life before it ever became content. He lived with his mother, and he's got an older brother who goes by the rap name PCF Lil Kari. Music was already in the air around that household, and like a lot of kids who grow up around older siblings already chasing something, RT started imitating it early, real early. Before he could even fully form complete sentences the way most kids his age would, he was already messing with rhythm and flow. That's not an exaggeration for the sake of a good story, that's just how those who knew him early on describe it. He had an ear for it before most kids his age even understood what rap was. And that's worth sitting with for a second, fam, because most of us think of musical talent as something that gets discovered later, in a school talent show or a church choir. For RT, it wasn't discovered, it was just there from the start, baked into the environment he was born into. So check it, by the time he's 8-9 years old, he's not just playing around in the house anymore. He starts stepping up next to grown rappers, freestyling alongside dudes years older than him, and shocking people who watched it happen. Imagine being that young and already comfortable enough to grab a mic next to an adult and hold your own. That's wild when you think about it. Most 9-year-olds are worried about recess. This kid is worried about his bars. Now here's where the story really takes off. He starts posting freestyle videos on TikTok, just raw clips of him rapping on the block, and one of those videos catches fire. It spreads fast, the way internet content does when it hits that perfect mix of shock value and raw talent. People are stopping mid-scroll like, wait, how old is this kid? Then in October of 2023, he drops his debut single, 60 Miles, alongside an artist named Batman J. That track is the one that changes everything. It blows up on YouTube, racking up millions of views in just a matter of months. The song leans into street life themes, urban struggle, the kind of subject matter you'd expect from a grown artist with years of life behind him, not a kid who hadn't even hit double digits for very long, and that's exactly where the conversation starts to split. Because on one side, you got people hyped, calling him a prodigy, comparing his confidence and flow to artists twice his age. But on the other side, you got a wave of concern, and it's coming from all directions. Parents, commentators, even other artists in the industry start asking the same question. Should a child this young be putting out music with this kind of content? Now in the streets, we know certain things. Talking about struggle, about the realities people live through, that's part of the tradition of hip-hop. It's storytelling rooted in real experience. But RT's situation hit different because he wasn't a grown man reflecting on a life he'd already lived. He was a literal child, still in elementary school, performing material that read like it came from someone twice his age. And that contrast, that gap between the maturity of the content and the age of the kid delivering it, that's what made this story blow up beyond just music blogs. It became a national conversation, the kind that pulled in people who'd never even heard of underground Atlanta rap before, just because the headline alone was enough to stop somebody mid-scroll. It wasn't just the music either. In November of 2023, Lil RT appeared on a live stream with popular Twitch streamer Kai Cenat. And during that stream, he delivered a freestyle that included a line that immediately set off alarm bells, language way too explicit and disturbing for a kid his age to even be saying out loud, let alone on a stream with that many eyes on it. Cenat reacted in the moment by pretending to take off his belt like he was about to discipline him, which only added more fuel to an already uncomfortable situation. Both of them caught heavy criticism for it afterward. Cenat later tried to walk it back, asking RT on stream if he'd actually said a different, far less troubling word instead, and RT went along with that explanation. But by then, the clip was already circulating everywhere, and it became one of the first moments where people who'd never paid attention to Lil RT before suddenly knew exactly who he was, and not for a good reason. He didn't stop at one song either. He follows up with 60 Miles 2, then 60 Miles 3, featuring Doughboy, and at this point the algorithm is doing what it does, pushing this kid into more and more feeds. He starts linking up with established names, dropping Big Dog Shotty with New York rapper Lil Mabu in March of 2024. For an underground artist, those kind of collaborations are a real cosign. It told people in the industry, this isn't just a viral fluke. People are taking this kid serious as an artist. But the real kicker though, the faster he climbed, the louder the criticism around him got. Because it's one thing to be a talented kid making noise online. It's another thing entirely once you start getting booked for actual performances in actual adult spaces. And that's exactly what happened in February of 2024 when Lil RT performed at a party out in Miami's Little River neighborhood. Now, this wasn't some school talent show or a clean YouTube short. Reports from that night described dancers twerking on him during the performance, along with the presence of an adult content creator at the event. Let that sink in for a minute. A child performing in an environment built for a grown audience, surrounded by adult entertainment. Conservative commentator Candace Owens didn't hold back when she spoke on it, calling it an example of what she described as sinister and evil people trying to corrupt the culture around children. She'd already been vocal before that night too, saying his lyrics reflected what she called the corrosion of the culture. On the other side of that debate, you had voices from inside the Atlanta rap scene pushing back. Fellow West Atlanta rapper Lil Tony defended him on a podcast, basically saying this is just where he's from, this is the environment that shaped him, and you can't really blame the kid for the world he was born into. So now you got two completely different lenses people are viewing this through. Some see exploitation, others see a kid being authentic to his environment, just doing what artists from his neighborhood have always done, except now with a global audience watching every move. And that disagreement, that's not something that got resolved, it just kept building. Especially once his birthday rolled around a few months later. In June of 2024, footage from Lil RT's 10th birthday party hit social media, and it spread fast for all the wrong reasons. The video showed adult women dancing on him during the celebration. Now fam, a 10th birthday is supposed to be cake, balloons, maybe a bounce house. Instead, the internet is watching a clip that sparked outrage from people across completely different political and cultural backgrounds, all landing on the same point, that this wasn't normal, and that something about the environment surrounding this kid needed to be questioned. That clip became one of those moments where even people who defended him before started going quiet, because there's a difference between defending an artist's content and watching footage like that play out in real time. Now let's shift gears, because this is where we got to address the part of his story that goes way deeper than internet drama or controversial performances. This is where it gets real. In November of 2024, Lil RT's family was hit with something no viral moment, no song, no collaboration could ever prepare them for. His older brother, who performed under the name PCF Lil Kari, was involved in a shooting near the Atlanta University Center. He was critically injured, and according to multiple reports, he later passed away from those injuries. Now, we're not going to sit here and dramatize details we can't confirm, because honestly, that's not what matters most in moments like this. What matters is what a loss like that actually does to a family, and especially to a child who's still trying to figure out who he is while the whole world is watching him do it. Think about that for a second. This is a kid who, just months earlier, was getting clowned and praised in the same breath for songs and performances. Now he's dealing with the kind of loss that breaks grown men. Losing a sibling, someone he grew up next to, someone who was part of the music journey with him in some way. That's not something a viral moment can prepare you for. That's not industry pressure. That's not internet criticism. That's real, permanent, life-altering pain. And for a kid that young, processing grief like that while still being a public figure, while still having a camera somewhere pointed at parts of his life, that's something most of us can't even imagine carrying. Most people who experience a loss like that get to grieve privately. They get to fall apart in their own home, surrounded by people who love them, without strangers online dissecting their every move or turning their pain into commentary. That privacy is something Lil RT didn't really get to have, at least not fully. Even in the middle of something this personal, this devastating, there were still people online speculating, still content getting made, still headlines circulating. That's part of what makes child fame so different from anything else. The line between public life and private life basically disappears, and even the worst moments a family goes through can end up filtered through an audience that never knew the person being lost. Situations like that change how a person sees the world, especially a child. It can shift how someone views safety, how they understand the streets they grew up around, how they think about success, and whether any amount of fame or money is actually worth what it costs. A loss like that doesn't just create sadness, it creates perspective, the kind of perspective most people don't get until they're a lot older, if ever. And that's part of why this story is so much heavier than people realize when they first hear the name Lil RT and think it's just about a kid who can rap. Now, this next part we got to handle carefully because a lot of what's out here is speculation, online debate, and people forming opinions based on clips rather than full context. But it's a conversation that's followed Lil RT since day one, so we're not going to skip past it. And that's the conversation around his mother and the role she's played in his career. From the jump, Lil RT's mother has been the one managing his social media presence, accompanying him to performances, and handling a lot of the public-facing side of his career. And once 60 miles took off, people online started asking questions. Was she simply trying to support her son's talent and give him opportunities most kids never get? Or was the speed of his rise and the way his image was being used creating pressure that primarily benefited the adults around him rather than the child himself? You see both sides argued heavily across comment sections and reaction videos. On one side, plenty of people online pushed back on the criticism entirely, saying family members stepping in to manage a young talent isn't unusual, and that outsiders judging from the comfort of their own circumstances don't always understand the full picture of what that family might be navigating. On the other side, you had a wave of public concern, including from commentators like Candace Owens, who said her heart broke for the child because she felt his guardians weren't steering him toward a healthier path. Critics pointed to the explicit content in his music, the adult environments he was being placed in for performances, and that birthday party footage, asking the same hard question over and over. At what point does supporting a child's talent cross into exposing that child to situations no kid should be in? Was the pace of his rise about nurturing a genuine gift? Or was it about capitalizing on a viral moment as fast as possible before it faded? This is where you start to see something bigger than just one family situation. Because when a young artist goes viral the way Lil RT did, the internet doesn't just focus on the kid, it zooms in on everyone around him. Parents, managers, anyone connected to the brand becomes part of the story, part of the debate, sometimes fairly, sometimes not. People form entire narratives off of a few video clips without knowing the daily reality of that household, the conversations happening behind closed doors, or the actual intentions driving the decisions being made. That's the nature of viral fame. It moves faster than the truth can keep up with, and the people closest to the artist often get caught in a narrative they didn't fully create and can't fully control. And look, there's no clean answer here. Both sides of that debate raise legitimate points. Supporting a child's talent isn't inherently wrong. Plenty of young athletes, actors, and musicians have parents deeply involved in managing their early careers, and many of them turn out fine, grateful even, for the doors that got opened. But the conversation around child fame in the entertainment industry isn't new either. And history has shown that without the right boundaries, without protecting a kid's actual childhood underneath all that exposure, things can go sideways in ways that take years to fully understand. So when it comes to Lil RT's mother and her role in his rise, the most honest thing we can say is this. It's a debate. It's public perception clashing with private reality. And outside of that household, none of us can say with certainty what the true intentions or daily dynamics actually were. What we can say is that the questions being asked about pressure, about pacing, about who actually benefits when a child goes viral, those are questions worth asking anytime a kid is thrust into this kind of spotlight, regardless of the specific family involved. Now let's zoom out for a second, because Lil RT's story isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a much bigger pattern we keep seeing play out with young creators across social media. A kid posts something, it catches fire, and within weeks their entire life shifts. Expectations form overnight. Brands want to work with them. Other artists want collaborations. Fans expect new content constantly, and if that content slows down, those same fans start asking what happened. Why'd they fall off? That cycle puts pressure on a young person that even adults in the industry struggle to handle, let alone someone who's still learning long division at school. We've seen versions of this play out across every corner of the internet, not just music. Child gamers who blew up streaming, kid influencers whose entire childhood got turned into a brand, young athletes whose highlight clips went viral before they even hit puberty. Every single time, the pattern looks similar. The internet falls in love with the novelty of it. A kid doing something at a level nobody expects, and that novelty gets monetized fast, sometimes faster than anyone around that child can fully think through the long-term consequences. Nobody's necessarily acting with bad intentions in these situations, but speed and good judgment don't always move at the same pace, and kids end up living out the result of decisions made in the middle of a viral storm. And here's the thing, fam, the public's relationship with young viral stars is never static. It shifts constantly. In the beginning, people are hyped, sharing the clips, defending the kid in the comments, calling them the future of the culture. But the moment controversy hits, that same crowd can flip just as fast, turning into the loudest critics, picking apart every decision made by the people around that child. Then time passes, the initial wave of attention fades, and what's left is the actual human being who has to live with everything that happened during that whirlwind. The views go down, the headlines stop, but the kid is still there, still growing, still trying to figure out who they are outside of the persona that got built around them during those viral months. Years from now, long after this specific story stops trending, that's still the person who has to wake up and live inside of everything that happened, whether the internet is paying attention anymore or not. That's really the question hanging over Lil RT's story right now. What happens after the moment fades? Because right now, he's still young, still in school, still figuring out who he is day to day, but he's already lived through more public scrutiny, more controversy, and more real personal loss than most adults experience in decades. He's been praised as a prodigy and criticized as a cautionary tale, sometimes within the same week. He's collaborated with respected names in the industry, performed in front of crowds most adult artists would be nervous to step in front of, and at the same time dealt with grief that no amount of views or followers could ever soften. So where does that leave him right now, going into this year? As of 2026, Lil RT is 12 years old. He's still active online, still posting, still has a fan base that's stuck around since those early viral days. But the picture looks a lot different than it did back when 60 Miles was blowing up every feed in sight. There's no major tour on the books, no string of festival dates, none of the non-stop scheduling people might expect for an artist who once looked like he was about to take over the culture overnight. The pace has slowed, and whether that's by choice, by circumstance, or just the natural way viral moments fade as the internet moves on to the next thing, that's not something outsiders can say for certain. What fans have noticed is a kid who's simply older now. Not grown, not transformed into some finished version of himself, just older. The way any 12-year-old looks different than the 9-year-old freestyling on a street corner a few years back. His page is still run by his mother, still handling bookings and features the way it always has. Some fans say they can hear it in his more recent material, a difference in tone, in subject matter, like he's working through more than he used to. Others say it's hard to tell from the outside how much has actually changed versus how much people just want to believe changed, because watching a kid grow up online makes you root for a redemption arc whether one's actually happening or not. And that's the honest place to leave it. The lifestyle a lot of people projected onto him early on, the assumption that viral fame at 9 would turn into stadium tours and a fully built career by his early teens, that hasn't played out the way some expected. What's left instead is a kid who's still here, still posting, still carrying everything that happened to him these last few years without the spotlight burning quite as bright as it once did. Some longtime fans have stuck around through all of it, still commenting, still checking in on him, treating him less like a viral novelty now and more like someone they've actually watched grow up. Others moved on entirely the way the internet always does, chasing whatever the next big moment happens to be, whether this current stretch is a quieter chapter or just the calm before something else. Nobody outside that household really knows. At the end of the day, Lil RT's story isn't just about a kid who can rap or a viral moment that turned into a career. It's about what happens when a child gets pushed into an adult spotlight before they're old enough to understand what that spotlight actually costs. It's about the pressure that builds quietly behind the scenes, pressure that doesn't always show up in a 30-second clip or a comment section debate. It's about a family trying to navigate opportunity and protection at the same time, and about a community split on whether what's happening is empowerment or exploitation. And it's about real loss, the kind that doesn't care how many views your last song got, the kind that reshapes how a person sees the world for the rest of their life. Growing up in front of millions sounds like a dream to a lot of people watching from the outside. But real talk, fam, the pressure that comes with that kind of exposure, the expectations, the criticism, the loss of a normal childhood, that's something most audiences never fully see. They see the clips, the numbers, the headlines. They don't see what it's actually like to carry all of that as a kid who's still trying to grow up. They don't see the nights where a child has to process grief while also reading comments from strangers about whether they're being exploited. They don't see what it's like to have your 10th birthday party turned into a national debate or your freestyle turned into a controversy you didn't fully understand the weight of in the moment. All they see is the highlight reel, and highlight reels were never built to show the full picture of anybody's life, especially not a child's. That's the part of this story that deserves more attention than it usually gets. Not the controversy, not the viral clips, not even the music itself, but the simple fact that underneath all of it is a kid, still trying to figure out who he is, still trying to grow up the way every other kid his age deserves to, except he's doing it with millions of strangers watching every step. So the real question now is what comes next for Lil RT? Does he get the chance to actually process everything he's been through, to grow into himself away from constant public judgment? Or does the internet keep treating his life like content, moving on to the next viral kid the second this story stops trending? That's not something any of us can answer for him, but it's something worth sitting with the next time a video like this shows up on your feed. What are your thoughts on Lil RT's journey and what this whole situation says about fame, family, and childhood in the social media age? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, and if you want to go deeper into stories like this one, check out the videos on screen right now for more.